A lot of the current conversation about online gambling is focused on sports betting, but for more than a decade, a much riskier type of gambling connected to a video game has been operating under the radar. It's called skin gambling. It's made some people a lot of money, but it's also led many underage video game players to place their first ever bets. I've been reporting on this global gambling ecosystem for the past year. Here's what I've learned. So there's this video game called CounterStrike. It's a first-person shooter played on the computer by more than 1 million people around the world every single day. It's got a really active community on YouTube, a bunch of people watch players stream it on the live streaming platform Twitch, and it's got a really active esports scene. The game was developed by a company called Valve, based in Washington State. And one of the things that Valve does, aside from developing video games, is it operates a digital distribution platform where video game players can go and download and buy video games from all different types of developers around the world. And they can connect with friends and play video games with them. This platform is called Steam. Now, one of the things that Valve did that's made Counter-Strike so popular is it added virtual items to the game called skins. They're called that because they're cosmetic items that change the exterior appearance of a player's in-game character or weapon or knife. You get these skins by opening loot boxes. A player pays $2.50 and they get a random skin. They might get a really, really rare one, or they probably are gonna get a more common one. Something that really contributed to the success of these skins is the Steam community marketplace. In addition to being able to trade different skins back and forth with your friends and other players, you can also take skins that you have and sell them to other players, or buy skins that you aren't able to get out of a loot box, really rare ones that you might want to shell out a little additional money for. What this did is it created a marketplace and a market price for all of these different skins. And what people realized they could do is create gambling sites that take skins with their market value and allow players to exchange those skins for chips to gamble with. Maybe their skin is worth $5. They deposit it on the skin gambling site. They play some roulette, maybe they win, and then they can withdraw a skin that's worth $25. And now there's this entire gambling ecosystem for these items from a video game. And there are dozens of these sites. Over the course of my reporting, I was able to identify about 70, but there are far, far more than that around the world because Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike skins are a global phenomenon. Skin gambling isn't super well known among the wider public, but it's been the subject of a lot of academic research. One study published in 2023 tracked the gambling habits of about 2,000 16 to 26-year-olds. And it found that, for example, if you have two individuals, both of them have a sports betting habit, and they have the same age, same demographics, socioeconomics, all of that stuff, and the only difference between the two is the second person is also skin gambling. On average, the second person has a gambling problem that's more than twice as severe as the first person. And the only variable that we've added to the second person is that they're skin gambling. And even though skin gambling is strongly associated with gambling-related harms, like credit card debt and loss of savings or isolation from friends and family, it's one of the most accessible forms of gambling that there is, especially for underage players of Counter-Strike. Since I started reporting on this, I've spoken to about 15 people who were skin gambling as minors. Some of them started at as young as 13 years old, and none of them had any problems getting into these skin gambling websites. They're all basically unregulated, they don't have gambling licenses, and you can get into the sites by just checking a box that says you're 18 years old. One of the reasons that skin gambling is associated with such high levels of harm is that skins aren't just worth money, they're status symbols. If you have a cool skin, your opponents and your teammates in the game can see it, and they're gonna compliment you when you join the game. Your friends that play the game might be more excited to play with you because they have a teammate that has a super sick skin, and that's someone that they wanna be around. So it's not just that you're gambling with something that's worth a lot of money, you're gambling with something that improves your social status. That's what you stand to win or lose when you're skin gambling. And to a certain extent, that social currency is better understood by a teenage brain than even money. If you play the game or you're plugged into CounterStrike's community, you are definitely aware of skin gambling and skin gambling websites. Basically, every top CounterStrike YouTuber is sponsored by a skin gambling site or has uploaded footage of themselves gambling on the site. And on Twitch, the video game live streaming platform, I found that almost half of all CounterStrike Twitch streamers are sponsored by a skin gambling site. These websites are also spending a lot of money on Google search ads. I found that 28 skin gambling sites over a 3-year period spent $56 million on Google search advertisements. And that really shocked me, to be honest, because these are gambling websites that basically nobody has ever heard of. They're these small businesses, you would think, but if you're able to spend $1 million a year on Google search advertisements, business is pretty good. Even though skin gambling has been around for a very long time, it's proven difficult to regulate. And that's because there's just so many skin gambling sites, and it's a little confusing to regulators. You're gambling with something that's worth money, but it's a virtual item, so is it really gambling? Different regulatory agencies around the world have different attitudes in this sort of thing, and it ends up being like whack-a-mole. If you go after one skin gambling site, another one is just gonna pop up the next day. Plus, in America, where we regulate gambling state by state, a lot of state gambling regulators just don't have the budget or the time to go after an individual skin gambling site that's registered in a country like Cyprus or Belize. One party that some have tried to hold accountable for skin gambling is Valve, whose software underpins the entire skin gambling ecosystem. In 2016, the Washington State Gambling Commission, which is the gambling regulatory agency in Washington State where Valve is headquartered, opened an investigation into Valve. Through a public records request, I was able to get my hands on a case report that detailed the findings of the gambling regulator. The regulator's conclusion was that Valve, quote, knowingly facilitates the illegal wagering of skins, and that Valve was in violation of multiple Washington State laws. One of the things that led the regulator to that conclusion is the idea that Valve has an economic benefit from the existence of these gambling sites, and an economist that I spoke to concurred with that assessment. Basically, if you're able to trade skins and you're able to gamble with skins, suddenly if you're not able to gamble with skins anymore, skins are useful for one less thing. So the overall value of skins declines, and that has a negative effect on Valve's bottom line because Valve gets a 15% cut every time a skin is bought or sold. So if skins are worth less, Valve makes less. Valve was cooperative with this investigation, and one of the things they told special agents at the Washington State Gambling Commission is that they have the ability to shut down a skin gambling site's access to its software. The software that allows a CounterStrike player to log into a gambling site and transfer their skins back and forth, Valve can just turn that off, which would basically be a kill switch for any skin gambling site. Eventually, state and federal prosecutors declined to bring a case against Valve because they felt they wouldn't be able to successfully prosecute the case in court, so they didn't try. In the meantime, CounterStrike has grown even more popular. Just last year, Valve released CounterStrike 2, which is a more updated version of the game with better graphics, the skins look better, so skin gambling is as popular as it's ever been, and at least for now, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon.